Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about how Nintendo themselves just leaked something crazy about Donkey Kong Bananza. As you continue to peel away at this very interesting banana of a story, this leak tells us more and more about the current state of Donkey Kong lore, which I think also relates to Super Mario lore, and may also have some serious implications for even the gameplay of this game. And so, there's actually a lot to get into today. This leak is just scratching at the surface, but it's all very interesting. But before going forward, let me take this moment to point out that I am aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the time the Switch 2 launches on June 5th, so if you find yourself enjoying my content, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe and hit that notification bell. So as reported by Nintendo World Report, on the Nintendo Korea site, they had a piece of promotional art that was showing Donkey Kong slamming the ground as we've seen for most of the promotional art for Donkey Kong Bananza. But instead of Oddrock, that purple little sidekick character that's riding along Donkey Kong's shoulder throughout this game, there is this little girl that looks a lot like a younger version of Pauline wearing a purple rock bracelet. What happened to Oddrock? Is this person related to Pauline in any way? And what does this mean for the overall story and gameplay for Donkey Kong Bananza? There are several layers here, but first let me just make it clear. This isn't even the first time that Nintendo Korea has leaked something. Just recently, they also leaked the location for Rainbow Road in Mario Kart World, so they're starting to build up a little bit of a tendency here. So considering the credibility of the report and the track record for Nintendo Korea leaking things, I don't think there's any real doubt that this is a legitimate leak here. But what does this leak mean for the game? Well, what I think it means is that eventually, instead of Oddrock riding around on Donkey Kong's shoulder, it's going to be Pauline. However, I think we need to take into consideration here that Oddrock is not just there for aesthetic reasons. Oddrock is a character that sings along with you, that helps you find things in the world and also unlocks secret levels. So they're very important for progression. So this girl who looks like a younger version of Pauline, they would have to take on a similar role, and given that they are a child, they should take up pretty much the same space and size as Oddrock, so I think it can actually still work aesthetically. But who is this person actually? Well, I'm going to speculate that Oddrock and this younger girl are the same person. And my reasoning for this is because we do need someone else to sing, and so it makes sense that if they are the same person at heart that they would still be one to sing. But also, when we first meet Oddrock, Oddrock is oddly terrified of monkeys. And we understand that Voidco, the antagonist, the main one, is a very evil, scary looking monkey. The leader of Voidco, at least from what we can tell so far. And Oddrock is a small Oddrock that we do not understand the history of, they're just terrified of monkeys. But they're also covered in this Voidco wrapping. So I don't think it's that much of a leap to think that the reason why Oddrock is so terrified is because they were terrorized by the leader of Voidco, this scary looking monkey, which is why Oddrock is inexplicably scared of monkeys, because of that prior experience. And another interesting thing to consider here, if this little girl is indeed a younger version of Pauline, then it would also make sense for her to have a singing ability, because Pauline in Super Mario Odyssey is quite the singer. So if Pauline is cursed in some way by Voidco and turns into Oddrock, it would explain why Oddrock is also a singer. So they both sing, and on top of that, this young girl is wearing this purple bracelet made of rocks. It looks very similar to what we see for Oddrock, so I think there's a fairly obvious connection here. Now, perhaps the bigger question to then ask is, if this is indeed Pauline, but as a little girl, why is she a little girl? Is it possible that Donkey Kong Bananza takes place far into the past before Pauline grows up into an adult woman? I think this is unlikely. And the reason why is because current Donkey Kong shouldn't be that old. Pauline is actually the original damsel in distress from the original Donkey Kong game that came out in 1981. And current Donkey Kong is actually the son of Cranky Kong, the original Donkey Kong in the original Donkey Kong game that came out in 1981. And so, Cranky Kong's already an old man. Pauline was an adult woman in the game that came out in 1981, and now she's a kid in this game. So it seems like they've grown in opposite directions here. Could it be possible that the only reason she looks like a little girl is because she was cursed, and perhaps as we progress into the game, current Donkey Kong will help cure her to an extent so she's no longer Oddrock, but younger Pauline, but she's still not fully cured because she's actually supposed to be an adult woman? That might be the case. It's also possible that maybe it's not actually Pauline, but perhaps someone related to Pauline, like maybe her daughter. Donkey Kong is a son for Cranky Kong, so maybe there could be a little bit of a connection there. The son and daughter of two prior characters from the original Donkey Kong. That would be a little poetic, actually. But there are a few other very interesting elements to consider here as well. So we actually see that Cranky Kong is in Donkey Kong Bananza. We see him in the lagoon, and we've seen the dialogue that he's provided. He explains that he had his own rival once upon a time who wore overalls. So there is a direct reference to Cranky Kong from the original Donkey Kong game. So that lore still remains intact here. They're not forgetting about it, they're not retconning it in any way, it appears. It's all totally intact, so they are showing that they are very much aware of that story and likely also Pauline's history. So this is all intentional. But when I consider this, I'm also reminded of how Cranky Kong from the original Donkey Kong was in his prime, an adult. But we also had Pauline, at the time as the damsel, an adult, and then the rival in overalls, Jumpman, an adult, who eventually came to be known as Super Mario. Mario and Pauline sort of stay in their primes in Mario Odyssey, but we see all these different references to old and modern Donkey Kong in New Donk City, implying that we already have Cranky Kong and modern day Donkey Kong. And so that has me wondering, why did Cranky Kong age so quickly, have a son who's now a full-on adult Kong, and yet Mario and Pauline are seemingly pretty much about the same age? How I used to look at it is that perhaps Kongs simply age on a different timeline. They age more quickly, a lot more quickly. Which is not an idea I'm in love with simply because I would prefer the Kongs to live for a long time, but considering the possibility that perhaps we have Pauline's daughter in this game, palling up with modern-day Donkey Kong, the son of Cranky Kong, who used to be Donkey Kong himself, maybe what's actually going down is that the original Jumpman is not the current Mario of today, the original damsel isn't the current Pauline of today, and we already know the original Donkey Kong is not the current Donkey Kong of today. Perhaps it's more like there are generations of these characters. If that's the case, all of a sudden, everything makes a lot more sense. But on the note of the Treehouse gameplay, there's something else I want to bring up here that could end up being related. So we're getting Cranky Kong back, and he also makes reference of Rambi as well, and there's literally a Rambi icon, so I think Rambi is literally going to be a part of this game. But there's a whole bunch of other Donkey Kong references. Whenever you collect a golden banana, they do the "oh, banana" thing. We have side-scrolling Donkey Kong elements, we have Espresso the Ostrich already in the game. There's a lot of prior Donkey Kong references. There is a clear acknowledgement of the entire history of Donkey Kong here. And to go a step further, during the treehouse, they actually refer to these crocodile-looking like enemies as different forms of crocs. And when Donkey Kong breaks their shells, where they have these big croc-like statue rock heads, there is a Kremlin-like golden skeleton. The Kremlins were this antagonistic croc species that Donkey Kong used to duke out with in Donkey Kong 64 and the country games, and the leader of them all was King K. Rool. So with Donkey Kong Bananza making so much heavy references to the history of Donkey Kong, it might be kind of odd for the Kremlins and King K. Rool to not also be referenced here. Now maybe they are being referenced with just these croc enemies, and that's it, but I would argue that's more so a reference to just the Kremlins and not the main Kremlin, King K. Rool. But I also mentioned earlier that seemingly Voidco are the main antagonists for this game. They want to steal the golden bananas. But would that explain how they were able to change Pauline into a little girl or a little purple rock? We're not sure, we don't know that much about their capabilities, but they do seem responsible for some very crazy things. But here's another consideration. King K. Rool has also had access to a lot of technology. I don't think it would be that much of a stretch considering his history that he could be involved with transforming Pauline into a little girl. Of course, I will also say that Oddrock is scared of a monkey, and I am assuming that Oddrock is this same little girl that looks like younger Pauline. So King K. Rool may not be involved at all, but it is very interesting that Crocs, seemingly references to Kremlins, are clearly in this game, and at least one thing is clear. There is still a lot about Donkey Kong Bananza that Nintendo has yet to reveal to us. And I mean this from both a story and gameplay perspective. I've already noticed that there seems to be a pretty good attention to detail with the story. When we see that opening segment with Donkey Kong and how he meets Oddrock, it's a very touching moment, and there's some pretty good voice acting, and considering everything we've discussed today, there does appear to at least be an attention to detail with at least referencing different things throughout Donkey Kong history. But then also considering the Rambi reference and that there was an icon for his name, I don't think it's meant to be just a reference. We are going to meet Rambi at some point, and considering Rambi's history with the Donkey Kong series, he's not just a character we're going to talk to. He'll likely play a role in the gameplay, and so I really love the idea of being able to ride Rambi around, causing even greater levels of destruction, because it is, after all, a big part of what Donkey Kong Bananza is. Constant, repeated destruction. But since we're talking about mounts here and different returning characters and such, how about Engarde? For some really cool water gameplay as well. We do see some patches of water in the lagoon area, but I like to see even bigger aquatic environments. From the treehouse footage, I've only noticed that Donkey Kong can swim around the surface of the water. Maybe in order to dive, he would need the assistance of a fish like Engarde. And I talked about this with my initial analysis for all the treehouse footage, but of course, if we're referencing different important characters throughout Donkey Kong history, the most important one that we haven't seen yet is Diddy Kong. So Diddy Kong's gotta be there in some capacity as well, and a lot of other Kongs might have an opportunity to show up too. So there's just so much potential with this game. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.